Hi folks, I'm back! Nothing? No celebrations or people jumping out of the floor to shake my hand? No fireworks? Huzzah? Hip hip? No? Okay. Well, I guess that's kind of what happens when nobody watches your vlogs. At all. Ever. But anyway, I'm back! Sorry it's been a while since I last did a vlog, if you actually cared, but I've been at university, and as we all know, university is nothing but sex, drugs and rock and roll all in one building. Specifically my bedroom. Yeah, I didn't do any work, I got thrown out. Well, it certainly has been a while. All 3 months of it. But I'm finally back to do some more vlogs over the Christmas break. Why? Because I'm fucking bored being back home and want to just go back to university. But before we begin, I have to just tell you that this old vlog review style I used to do will now change to a much more hip, cool, and erratic YouTube look. Why? Because it's bloody difficult talking to a camera for 15 minutes in one take without screwing up a word or two. Okay? Today, if you're watching this in the day, I thought I'd review 2 movies by a filmmaker I was introduced to in my first term at university. The man's name was Errol Morris, a documentary filmmaker who's won the Academy Award in 2003 for Best Documentary. Not only has he won an Oscar, but he's also done an incredible body of work, but I bought his 2 best films, The Thin Blue Line and The Fog of War. This one won the Academy Award, but this one's better. The Thin Blue Line is a 1988 documentary made by Errol Morris. It's about the 1976 murder of a dance policeman and the wrongful conviction of a man called Randall Adams, who was tried and convicted and sentenced to jail for the murder of the officer. Not only is it a spectacular film, but it's also one that has a lot of emotions within it. And when I mean emotions, I'm talking about the entire spectrum. You've got happiness, sadness, love, regret, pity, sorrow, depression, anger, frustration, confusion, intrigue, and awesomeness. That's right, it's an emotion. The main documentary itself focuses on the innocent man who is behind bars, Randall Adams. And Randall Adams, bless him, was actually filmed while in his cell, still wearing full prison garb. But he is innocent. In fact, 1 year after this film came out, he was released from prison. That's bloody good filmmaking. If something you've made can get an innocent man who would have been on death row out of jail, kudos. Hats off. So why is this documentary so great? Well, as I mentioned before, it has a huge emotional spectrum in it, but it also has some very, very different styles of filmmaking which you wouldn't see in a documentary. Seeing as how the majority of the film are talking head pieces where people are interviewed to camera, it's intercut with these reconstruction scenes of what they're saying really happened. And not only are these scenes shot beautifully, but they're also incredibly hypnotic and mystifying. And I think the main reason those sequences are so beautifully hypnotic and mysterious is the Philip Glass score that goes behind it. That's right, Philip Glass scored this film. Koya Nisquatsi? No? Okay. Anyway, Philip Glass does a fantastic job of the music on this movie. Not only, as I mentioned, hypnotic and mysterious, but it's also incredibly relaxing, despite the fact that what you're seeing on screen might not necessarily be relaxing. And the film's a perfect testament to his body of work. It's original, fresh, vibrant, but also incredibly recognisable as a Philip Glass score. Okay, the story. Seeing as how you probably want to know what the film is about before you go out and buy it, though it would be cheap. But anyway, the story. On November 19th, 1976, a car got pulled over by a police cruiser on a quiet motorway road in the middle of the night. The driving officer stepped out of the car, approached the other vehicle, and got shot 5 times. He was killed instantly. His partner, while drinking a slush puppy I believe, jumped out and emptied her gun into the car but didn't hit anything. The car sped off. Over 30 days later, an innocent man, Randall Adams, was arrested and taken to the police station, where he remained until he went to jail. Randall Adams looks so defeated in this movie and tired, but I suppose you would be if you've been locked up for 12 years for something you didn't do. One of the other characters, a character who was actually responsible for the murder who is in the film, is a kid called David Harris. David Harris was a troubled youth who always had run-ins with the law. David had picked up Randall Adams because he needed a ride, in a stolen car I might add. After he dropped off Randall Adams, he drove down the highway, which is where the police met him. He shot the police officer, drove down, got drunk and bragged it to his friends, but no one believed him. So David Harris was the actual person responsible for this murder, and he's in the film. But don't get me wrong, he's locked up behind bars. In fact, you see handcuffs on him most of the time, mainly because he committed so many other crimes. But it's just irritating to see that that kid who was really responsible is actually behind bars for other crimes, whereas an innocent man has spent 12 years of his life wasting away. One of Randall Adams' lawyers at the time said the reason they blamed Randall Adams was because David Harris was 16 years old, and in Texas, under 18-year-olds can't get the death penalty. So essentially because of age, and because a judge simply had a perfect win record, Randall Adams was thrown away in prison for 12 years. Everyone who was involved in this case does appear in the film. The judge, the prosecutor, Randall Adams' lawyers, David Harris, the police officers who were there, witnesses, detectives, journalists, reporters, private investigators. Everyone imaginable who could have been around at the time for this case or was involved is in the film, and that's a testament to the filmmaker to be able to get all those people in at one time. The judge at the trial was known for getting a conviction every single time, and so Randall Adams was always going to be guilty in the judge's eyes. He was just another number to fit into his perfect conviction. In fact, the judge retired not long after because he had such a good record and he wanted to keep it that way. The Thin Blue Line is a fantastic documentary and one of the most interesting and intriguing ones I've ever seen. I'm not exactly sure how I can even label the film into a certain category. Not only does it have these wonderful and incredibly interesting talking head segments, but then it has these beautiful reenactments with music scored by Philip Glass. What I do know is that when you watch it, you will feel every single emotion possible. You will hate some witnesses, you will love some, you will feel sympathy for Randall Adams, sometimes you may not even trust him. You will root for his lawyers, but once you know the inevitable verdict, you feel down and depressed, but also scared. And I think scared is the main emotion here. Scared because, when I was watching this film, I was constantly thinking, what if it happened to me? What if some chav got murdered? Oh, no one would believe that. Some ginger got murdered here in North Wales, and then I was arrested for it, but I was innocent. I'd be terrified. I mean, how could you prove your innocence once you've been locked up? And the real sad thing about this is that Randall Adams spent 12 years in prison before this film was made and then he was released. 12 years! He spent his over a decade of his life behind bars. That is depressing. That is truly, truly depressing. All I hope is that he got some compensation out of it, but he can't exactly turn back the clocks. But anyway, check out The Thin Blue Line. It's fantastic. Coming up next, The Fog of War. Motorway road in the middle of the night, a car was pulled over by a police officer. Oh, you're kidding. Hello? Hi, Grant. I'm fine, how are you?